Let's look at the reducer function again. App state consists of two states, item list state and search term state, and it is very complicated to process all states in one place. It would be nice to be able to process each state separately and tie them together later. First, we'll create an items reducer function that handles the item list state. Items reducer receives item list state and dynamic type action as argument and returns item list state. Since we are not handling the entire app state, the depth is lowered. Now the state is item list state, not app state. So the operation is much simpler, and you only need to process the actions you need. If the action is add item action, then the item list state changes. By the way, unlike when calculating the entire app state, the state is item list state. In other words, when you should have handled the app state itself, you access the item list state like state.itemListState. But now you don't have to, because state is item list state. Store action.item, which is the item to be newly added in the new item variable. Next, use the list spread operator to add a new item to the existing item list and store it in the new items variable. Next, use the copy the function of item list state to generate the new item list state with the value of the item's argument as new items and return it. If the action is delete item action, then the item list state changes. Again, the state is item list state, not app state, so the depth is lowered by one level. While scanning state.items using the where function, create the new item list with items whose item is not the same as action.item and store it in the new items variable. Next, use the copy the function of item list state to generate the new item list state where the value of the item's argument is new items and return it. If there is no corresponding action, the state is returned as it is. Next, we'll create the search term reducer function that handles the search term state. Search term reducer receives the search term state and dynamic type action as argument and returns search term state. In this case too, the depth is lowered because app state is not handled. Now the state is search term state, not app state, so the operation is much simpler and you only need to process the actions you need. If action is a such item's action, use the copy the function of search term state to generate the new state whose search term argument value is action.searchTerm and return it. If there is no corresponding action, the state is returned as it is. Now we have reducer functions that process the individual state. Next, we need to combine these two. However, if you look closely at the appState class, appState has two arguments, item list state and search term state. An items reducer and search term reducer return item list state and search term state respectively. Therefore, we can assign the result of calling two reducer functions to the corresponding arguments. This is because each reducer processes the corresponding state and actions in the state tree. The value of the item list state argument of appState is the return value of items reducer. The state of items reducer is the item list state slice of appState. Also, the value of search term state argument of appState is the return value of search term reducer. The state argument of search term reducer is the search term state slice of app. This is also a little different from Redux.js. In Redux.js, you create an app state using a utility function called combine reducers. But in Dart, you can return a new app state instance using function return value. The readability of the code has been greatly improved. Another advantage of doing this is that you can move that reducer to a folder with state and actions. It also has the advantage of making the code much more modular. I will create the item list reducer.dot file to store item list reducer on the item list folder. Return to the app reducer.dot file again, cut the items reducer, move it to the item list reducer.dot file, and import the necessary files. Return to the app reducer.dot file and import the item list reducer.dot file. Next, I'll create the search term reducer.dot file under the search term folder to store the search term reducer. Return to the app reducer.dot file again, cut the search term reducer, move it to the search term reducer.dot file, and import the necessary files. Return to the app reducer.dot file and import the search term reducer.dot file. Let's do a hard restart and test.